Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another preview on the Stacey West. I'm Jake Tonge, as you'll know. This weekend we've got a very difficult tie. It's currently second versus third in Sky Bet League One as we host Ipswich Town. Very fortunate to be joined by YouTuber musician Benjamin Bloom, an Ipswich fan. Hi, Ben. Are you all right?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm just very flattered that you think playing against Ipswich is going to be a difficult game. You never think playing against a team is going to be a hard game, do you? So it's
No.
nice to hear someone thinks it's going to be a
Well,
hard game.
yeah. Well, I think given your start of the season, bar Tuesday night, really, I don't think Lincoln fans will go into this game expecting a win. Obviously, let's talk about that start of the season. It's been quite impressive for Ipswich, rather. But obviously, that was the case last season as well. You started off well, but faded off. Can you see the same thing happening again, or is it different this time around?
I've got no idea, but I will genuinely, I'll try and explain why. And that's not me being facetious or anything. They're so impossible to understand, this club and this team and this manager at the moment. So you mentioned last season where we honestly flitted between being like unbeatable, not conceding any goals and winning 9 in a row, and being terrible. I think just like 3 wins in 19 at one point or something. Yeah. And the point is, the way that the season played out last year, we finished 11th in the end on the points per game, which sounds like, do you know what I mean? Win 1, draw 1, lose a couple, draw 1. Win. Sounds like that, doesn't it? But it wasn't. It was win 9, don't concede any goals, be top of the league, or then lose, don't win for 8 games, which is just so hard to get your head around. We weren't an 11th place team. We were either a first place team or a 22nd place team. It was so peculiar. So the suspicions we have are not founded on, one game or, a defeat to Doncaster or whatever. But I have no idea. You could get either. Obviously, I hope we're more like the team that's winning lots of games and knocking League One teams over. But ask any Ipswich fan, they're not sure what you're going to get.
Obviously, Paul Lambert, he signed that big contract just before the game against us, actually. But,
it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
After Christmas. But, were you surprised to see Paul Lambert still in a job come the start of the season?
No, because I know my club and I know the owner. But I can understand why the likes of you guys from the outside were, because you kind of look at it and you think, okay, he comes in and they went from McCarthy to Hurst and that changeover was handled awfully. And then he kind of got this free pass to get relegated out of the Championship. But then it's right, okay, Ipswich in League One. And I know other League One clubs don't like Sunderland fans or Pompey fans or Ipswich fans saying it, but Ipswich's level over the evidence of literally 5 decades is above League One,
Agreed.
So they're dropping in for the first time in a while. You expect them to be competitive, and they appeared to be so. And then, like I say, fell off in this most confusing way to end up 11th. So, I can see why people would think change, but our owner just doesn't do that. He wants someone to come in and run his club for him, essentially, and run the football side. So he will be in a job until it is literally completely untenable. So, no, I wasn't surprised, but I can see why. Were you?
Yeah, I was. I mean, especially after the way he sort of fell off a cliff last year. Obviously, there was quite a few managers, like the Cowley brothers that were free available this summer. I was surprised Ipswich didn't jump ship, especially when those two were available. Yeah. But,
I mean, but the thing is, Jake, our owner, sometimes you get the idea that some owners, they go off a feeling, don't they?
Yeah.
They're like, this doesn't feel right, I'm going to act. Our owner will never do that. There'll never be 3 defeats in a row and he'll come out of a 1-0 defeat at home to Fleetwood and go, this doesn't feel right, I've got to act. He'll say, well, I'll only review this in the close season or what have you. And he's done it once, to be fair. He got Hurst out after 16 games. That's the one time he has done it. And I think he's had his fingers so badly burned by that. He wants an experienced manager, and he wants him for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, Gwion Edwards has been one of the players that have been really impressive for Ipswich so far this year. But the game we're ultimately going to have to talk about is the Doncaster defeat. 4 goals, shit, which is very unlike Ipswich, the side who won 5 of the first 6.
Yeah, and this is the entirely confusing thing about this team, because a defeat like that is not a surprise to any of us. Do you know what I mean? Despite being up at the top of the table, and it was 5 wins and a draw at that point. So you would think a team that had won 5 and drawn 1 out of the first 6 games wouldn't be going and losing 4-1. But this is stranger things have happened last season, so we're not surprised. And just the nature of the goals as well, where you start to see this as an Ipswich fan and you see the individual mistakes. You would hope in any normal circumstance, 1-5, drawn 1, lose 4-1 at Doncaster with a load of individual mistakes. Okay, it's going to be a one-off. It's a freak result. Do you know what I mean? You would hope that. But having lived through what happened last season, then it may not be. And Paul Lambert just seems a real momentum type manager. He loves to get on a roll, and it's not about the fine details over minutes 30 to minutes 50 of this game. It's about the roll of 10, 15 games. And then you get this issue of, oh, we're 2-1 down at Doncaster, but we're going to fold. Or at Lincoln and lose 5-3, you know. Yeah. So, yeah, it was worrying, but we've seen it before.
Yeah, as bad as Ipswich were, I think Doncaster were very good that night as well.
And Ben Sims especially, yeah.
Ben Whiteman is a player that is far too good for this division. But they're a side that are expected to challenge as well this year. They've started off very well. A few loanees from higher up in the division. What did you make of Doncaster's performance? Because we played them in a few weeks as well.
Well, yeah, very impressive. You mentioned Whiteman, and I was going to throw Sims in there as well. And this was sorry to put it back to us, but this was our problem last season, where there was a ludicrous stat quite close to lockdown and the season sort of essentially finishing. We hadn't beaten a team in the top 8. So this team, we have this season because Accrington were at the point that we played them. Read into that whatever you will, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But this team historically has not done well in difficult situations. So no surprise coming up against a team like Doncaster. Obviously, as an Ipswich fan, having seen some of the heights we've reached in my lifetime, it's not pleasant to see us going down 4-1 midweek away at Doncaster in League One. But it's where we are, isn't it? So
obviously, who were the 2 of the main players? We discussed Gwion Edwards a little bit performing this year. Who are the players that are dragging Ipswich to that second automatic spot at the minute?
That's a good question. I'll kind of pick at the way you worded it. Dragging. It doesn't feel like there's 1, 2 or 3 players sort of dragging Ipswich through games. It feels like that we've got a big squad of players, a lot of them who could probably still play in the Championship, that haven't been knitted into a very good team yet. And sometimes it feels like our quality gets us through a game overall rather than one player. I mean, you mentioned Edwards. Yeah, he's had a really, really good start to the season. Seems to be finishing very well. We're lacking up top because Caden Jackson's going to be missing he's self-isolating, and Norwood's out for seven weeks, although seems to be having some personal issues as well. So we're a bit light up top. Maybe Hawkins will come in there. But Luke Chambers, the captain, strangely at age 35, has been playing quite well at right back. Wolfenden's been not there yet. Downs, obviously, we had. So it's weird because the names that you'd think I would mention, I'm not. And I suppose Edwards for the goals. But yeah, it's interesting when you say who's been dragging you through. I don't know. It feels like overall, and this was the case last season, that sometimes without necessarily being that good a team, the kind of quality of our players dragged us through a lot of games.
John Nolan's one of the few players in your squad to have put on the red and white as well. How's he getting on so far this year?
Better this year, yeah. He's not well liked, actually, John Nolan. I think he gets tarred with the Paul Hurst brush, because he came with him, Hurst, Toto and Ciala, and John Nolan all came with Hurst at that time, and there's a lot of suspicion and a lot of irritation about the Hurst era. Nolan's one of these guys that looks like technically could be a really good player, and then you kind of realise, I'm going to sound really, really mean here, Jake, you kind of realise why he's a League One player.
Yeah.
And, you see him receive the ball really nicely at one point, play a nicely weighted pass, and you think, oh, good player. And then you see the kind of key weaknesses that physically maybe he doesn't totally get about, and he can't piece together those skills that even a championship player would be on all the time. So I think he's technically a good player, but I don't know. I think we were expecting, when he arrived from Shrewsbury, I think he scored like 10 or 12 goals that season. Yeah. Maybe we were expecting the new Matt Holland, and obviously he isn't. But I think technically he's a good player who hasn't quite pieced it together yet. But hey, he might just be a League One, League One, lower Championship player, and I'm expecting him to be Matt Holland.
I think the problem that when he was at Lincoln was he seemed to have a bit of an attitude problem. We were in the conference at the time, and I think he was definitely beyond that level. Obviously,
I can imagine.
He's a very technical player. It didn't probably suit non-league. But if we could just talk about, obviously, one that I'll be very happy about, the game last season at Sincilbank. We did play each other a number of times last season over the FA Cup and in the league, but the game that stands out, especially to Lincoln fans, will probably be the Jake Hesketh masterclass at Sincilbank, the 5-3. What were your thoughts on the day, and how you reflect on it?
I reflect on it as in, and I'm going to pay you the ultimate disrespect and respect at the same time, and say this is where Ipswich are now, where Lincoln is seen, because of the Mick McCarthy TV game against the Cowleys, and that Lincoln is kind of symbolic in Ipswich's descent from from challenging for the playoffs under McCarthy down to 11th in League One, because obviously you were on the rise with the Cowleys and that TV game. And then you mentioned it as well, the timing of the contract signing for Lambert and that defeat happening after. So I kind of see Lincoln as quite symbolic. And I had the utmost respect for Lincoln as a club, but Lincoln in the history of Ipswich haven't been a rival, and they now are a rival. Look, it's second against third. So when we come up against Lincoln, I'm always like, and I always remember going to the game, the Portman Road game, and you brought 5,000 fans down, and I was like, this is a club really, the fans are really enthusiastic and really on the up, and they've got these ambitious managers, and we're kind of a bit staid and stuck in the Championship, and it was a enlightening contrast. But that's when I think of Ipswich and Lincoln, I think of the rivalry now. And please don't have a go at me in the comments or on Twitter or anything, because I'm just being honest. Ipswich and Lincoln haven't been rivals. Now they are, and we are where we are, and that's how I see the prism of that. And whatever, call me an arrogant Ipswich fan or whatever. I'm not. Just go and look at the history of both clubs. They've not been rivals before.
No, you're not quite Alex Griffin, the Ipswich. But yeah, I think we surprised.
Slamming his seat about the other night on the internet, wasn't he? Bless him.
Were surprised to see our rise through the divisions? Obviously, under the Cowley brothers. You mentioned taking 5,500 to Ipswich, and then the FA Cup game as well on the telly. We've risen through the leagues rather quickly.
No, not surprised at all. No, having seen. We were there at the start of it, weren't we, with that cup game? So I could kind of smell that something was happening there, and that the Cowleys were a little bit different. The way they were talking, and the results were there. And I know they've had some backing and whatnot, but hey, that happens at all levels of the game. I was interested with the way that the Cowleys played it, in respects of they wanted to get that job done, because I know they'd had offers before and the timing of that. So no, I'm not surprised. It's impressive, and I mean, you'll be able to tell me more about what the next step will be now with Appleton. But you talk about what the trajectory of a club is. I don't think anyone would look at Lincoln and say anything other than, look, this is going in the right direction and trending upwards and all looking very viable and positive.
I think a Michael Appleton Lincoln will be a bit of a different task for Ipswich, especially this year. We've started off really well. George Grant, a player that's not cut it before at the Championship level, seems to be one of the standing players in the division. What are you expecting from both Lincoln and Ipswich on Saturday?
Well, I mean, rewind the last 10 minutes of talking. I have nightmares about playing Lincoln for obvious reasons.
Good.
This is a team and a manager that hasn't coped in tricky situations. And we go away to Lincoln, second versus third, with... I remember Appleton being very highly rated in the past as well. So a capable manager. You've got Grant, on fire. And the most obvious link in the world is Brennan Johnson is the son of David Johnson, who was a great player for us. So Ipswich fans always, we've been linked with Liam Bridcut about 100 times over the years. And you have a big strapping centre half who seems to have a habit of scoring goals as well. Ipswich fans just look at all those things and go, oh, God, it's Lincoln. They've got the kid of one of our good players. George Grant's on fire, and they've got a centre half who scores all the time. And you're like, how many of those things are all going to happen at the? So look, please don't get me wrong and think that I'm just this pessimistic. I'm not. I look at the evidence. I look at the stats, and I look at what's come before. I'm not. I wouldn't. If I thought we would turn up and win, because we probably, on the basis of most squads in the Championship, have a lot of quality, I would say that. But I'm concerned about this one and an Ipswich defeat in this one, and that mood that very quickly shifts amongst Ipswich fans. Right, the suspicion is reasonable. We're not being jerks to Paul Lambert here, but I'm concerned, Jake.
How if I had to push you for a bit of a score prediction and how Ipswich are going to line up, what would you respond to that?
I can't predict this team. We could beat you 2-0 and look really comfortable, or we could lose 5-3. And it seems our team is predicated on its confidence. And if we were to start the game and Gwion Edwards gets in a good position and scores a low percentage chance, which he has been, we'll probably go on and win. Yeah. But if all of a sudden you're putting a bit of pressure on and you take the lead, I think we would fold. That's the evidence of this team thus far. So I don't know what we're going to get. It's literally that binary that it could be either. And it sounds like I'm hedging my bets, but again, I'll reiterate, this is a team that in the same season last season, Jake, looked like they were going to run away with the division and also looked atrocious within the same season.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for coming on. It's massively appreciated.
You see, I'm having a crisis here, can't you?
Obviously, where can people who are watching this video find more of you and more of your football talk?
Well, from a Lincoln fan's point of view, I'd push you towards the Blue Monday podcast, which focuses on Ipswich and on League One. If you want to watch any of my personal stuff, that's mainly on the Championship and a few Premier League teams that have been in the Championship. But I suppose I should mainly plug the Blue Monday podcast. And it's a good listen. It's not a cheerleader fan thing. If you play well and beat us, we will go on the podcast and say, you played well and beat us. Yeah. You won't get a nonsense, we were robbed. If you're better, we'll say you're better. If we're better, we'll say we're better. At Blue Monday ITFC on Twitter, and just type Benjamin Bloom into YouTube and you can find me there.
He's the one with the blue tick, Gary, just in case you were wondering.
The tick's actually white. It's the background that's blue, Jake. But I get a lot of grief for having a blue tick. It hasn't changed my life in any way, shape or form other than that. But there you go.
But thank you very much, Ben, for coming on. Thank you everybody else for watching, and we'll see you next time.